Hello and welcome to another wonderful SMI working group meeting on multi-cluster. If you haven't yet, please add yourself to the attendees list. This is recorded and will be put on YouTube at some point in time. So watch your words, please. We try to more or less continue where we left off before KubeCon some 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So we essentially at some point in time said that we are fine with the changing the or refining, clarifying the charter in a sense. And remind me, have we already merged the PR, or are we still reviewing? We have already merged it. Cool. So we have essentially done the groundwork and now would need to essentially iterate a little bit more on how we're going about that. And I think we have volunteers who did a little bit of work. So I'm gonna let you folks report on if you had some time. There are obviously no expectations given KubeCon and everything, but if you had some time, if you want to give us a status update, that would be appreciated.
I think we're looking at you, Delian. We're not looking to review a doc in detail, but do you want to give us the 10,000 foot TLDR? What are you thinking of?
I love it. All right, let's do that. Why not? Let's do it real quick. So I am going to paste even a link to the doc. The doc that we've been working on is very alpha. It's still just kind of like work in progress, thoughts. Anyone with the link can comment. This is SMI multi-cluster work in progress doc. I just pasted it, but I'm going to share my screen as well. And kind of just breeze through it real quick. I was just chatting with Bridget earlier before the call started that I would love to have some more time to kind of continue to hack on this doc because I don't feel that we are ready.
Just pause for a second. I just realized, Johnson, are you new to the group? I cannot remember for the life of it. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh yeah, I joined 2 months back in the OSM team. This is like my I've been in.
Yeah, he's on Delia's team.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of SMI community meetings. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, Michael, for inviting kind of the new team members to say hello. Hopefully you see this document. It's called Multi-Cluster Service Mesh Interface. You see it? Let me walk you really quickly. Yes. So Sergio and everyone else kind of helping with that. Thanks for helping. Sergio, you just joined and I was just explaining how I would like to show that we've made some progress, but we're not ready yet. There's a bit more work to be done and we're busy, but we're going to get to it. And so what with Sergio's kind of graceful and very generous time donation, we've kind of started to work on outlining kind of the use cases. So what we're trying to do here is not recommend some sort of a particular implementation of a multi-cluster, but essentially outline the use cases of what are we trying to really solve. And of course, I added kind of my opinion, a few things that I'm trying to solve. I want to scale a service. I want to add service resiliency, failover, east-west traffic. And so the next stage is here where, as you can see, we're working to add kind of user story. As an operator, I want to be able to, scale a service between many clusters or add resiliency. I shared the link to this doc. There's a few diagrams to kind of start forming thinking. And of course, there's some exploration on what SMI policy would look like. I think it's way too early to talk about changes to the SMI policy itself. I still think we need to work on this section of adding user stories to kind of define the problem. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know that I'm ready to get much deeper into this doc. You have a link. I would love to kind of start getting your feedback, or if you think that you can add a user story and help us with that, that would be incredible. If you think that there's another perhaps goal that we need to target, another use case or user scenario.
Cool. Sergio, anything you want to add from your side?
No. I think that Del has been doing a great job here, and everybody else. So I mean, we are still far from where we wanted to be, but we'll get there. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, and this is something we have discussed also in the in the internal meetings that got us to this point. There's going to be a lot of opinions in terms of use cases and different things that we will need to further discuss. It's not going to be only listing, I think, in my opinion.
Right.
There's going to be a lot of discussion.
Right. Did you consider, I'm not sure if that's maybe already too deep into it, but did you consider also migration?
Interesting. How about I add it as a bullet point to kind of think about when you say migration?
Yeah, so the basic question is always like, if you introduce something new, what kind of expectations are you setting around? Will it be 100% backwards compatible? What's, how, if you have, imagine in a couple of months time, whatever, we have something there, and then how does the version that we have there then play together with existing previous versions, like in terms
API
of,
wise, Michael?
Yeah, is it this
API
SMI or payload?
Yeah. I'm more thinking from a user perspective. Really, people like take someone who currently uses open service mesh or something open service mesh based or whatever, right? And then whatever you call this new SMI++ or SMI extended or whatever, how is there a migration path? Will it just work out of the box? It's very on a very high level. I'm not asking for or suggesting we should work on a script or whatever. It really just on a high level. How do we think about that? Is that an intentional break with what we currently have? Is it something backwards compatible? Is it like, how do we position this kind of like transition into this new world? Right?
I love it. That makes sense. I definitely think that it's a little too early. I think once we kind of define all those use cases, I'm going to leave this to do because I think that's very important. I definitely think about it, and some of the exploration that I've done, which I said it's too early to talk about it. I think the exploration should cover that. How do we work with vPrevious and vNext at the same time? How do we migrate? I love it. So we're going to continue to think about that.
Yeah, I think that could be a whole separate project, right? It's not migration could be for it's not just for multi-cluster. It could be about a host of other future things as well.
Yeah, but it's not a bad idea to take that into consideration when we are this. I mean, once we get to the point where we need to define a new API, right, and see if how different the new API can be, if we can do it in a way that is an evolution rather than a full change in a way that we need a migration. Maybe we don't need a migration. But I mean, it's a good point, regardless of if it is part of this project or not, right? But at least we should take it into consideration. Yeah,
exactly. It's not about that. That's why I said it's not about concrete steps or whatever. It's really expectation setting. Like it's like, what are we really talking about? Something new that is by design different. And by implication, that also means that existing systems, there would be some kind of migration or whatever, or is it something that by design is set up in a way that it is backwards compatible? That's more the underlying sentiment.
Nice, awesome. I'm going to stop sharing, and I look forward to kind of continuing the work on this doc and share again next time. And I saw that Edith just joined us. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you here.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey Edith, did you have a chance to look at I don't know when you joined exactly, but right, so can you see the doc that Dylan shared earlier on in the chat? the Google Docs?
Super happy to share again. I also
Oh, yeah,
pasted the link.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So
Yeah.
that was what we were discussing. And I think you haven't been around for a few. So what we
Yes.
essentially did so far was we have this basic agreement that we want to work in SMI towards this, some call it multi-cluster, I call it cross-compute, whatever, like beyond Kubernetes, right? That's the cross compute, cross clusters. And so far we have clarified our charter, so it's clear that we don't confine ourselves to pure, that it can only, SMI can only work in the context of Kubernetes. And we have some volunteers who put together this first draft, and yeah, that's where we are. So we haven't,
Okay.
you haven't missed too much yet. A good time.
Fantastic. Thank you for the update.
Does everyone know it? Everyone knows, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Hi.
I know who you are. We haven't met.
Hey, nice to
As
meet you.
long as you know who it is. Right?
So, Mike, I don't know you though.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm an engineering manager on the console team at HashiCorp.
So, okay, fantastic.
Any other cross introductions?
Please,
It's hard to be in that space and not know who it is, but
My name's John. Yeah, my name's Johnson. I work at the Dell in the SMI OSM team in Microsoft. So yeah, I'll be focusing on primarily on SMI, working with Michelle as well.
Okay, nice to meet you.
I have the feeling, I can't say that off the record because we're on the record, obviously, but it seems like Azure, it's like half of Azure is SMI or OSM. It's like every second person I meet is, oh yeah, I'm in that team. Like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Very good.
I mean, it might be the selection bias of the circles you've run in,
It
but
might be.
Look, I'm super happy with this community. I think what's happening here is very interesting. I mean, look at this great people. And so I promote the community and invite all sorts of people. So I think just by just talking about it within folks that I talk to, and that's how we end up here. And I think the more kind of smart people you have for looking at, for instance, this doc and giving us kind of feedback, the better. Get a broader view, right? Diversity of opinion.
Right. Anything you want to share, Edith, for like, I know you probably didn't have a lot of time to look at the doc, but
No, I didn't
from
look
your
at the
point of view.
blog. No, I mean, I'm excited actually to see what you guys do.
Cool.
super awesome. Well, we're these days, Edith, I know you haven't been at the meeting in a little while. So these days we do the multi-cluster one every other week, and then we do the regular community meeting. So like we'll have the regular community meeting next week. And then the following week, more multi-cluster.
Got it.
So if you feel like looking at that multi-cluster doc and putting, comments on it or whatnot,
Yeah,
adding
no, I
case
will do my
study,
best. I mean, as you
Yeah.
know, it's swamped.
Of course,
That's why
of
I
course.
couldn't come to all the meetings.
But yeah, so you have 2 weeks before multi-cluster is the topic again.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
um,
And the document is also super early stage, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
there's not a lot there yet for
Yeah,
you to digest.
It's literally the first time that we are reviewing this doc. But yeah, thank you so much, both of you. You have done an awesome job there. I didn't even expect that we have that much. I thought like, like a sentence or two, but so we're already like well set up. So I'd really
There is room for more people, Michael. If you want to collaborate, there's always room.
Yes, please.
I absolutely no. I agree. And
I was kidding. That's okay.
The thing is that I think now is the phase where we are all capable, right? It's not about I don't have any doubts that we are all great, in terms of architecting and design decisions, etc. This is more about the buy-in. This is more about all of us have stakeholders and so on, and we do, I think, lack one thing, and that is end users. We need for this specific design or decision or whatever, we need to get more end users in there, right? I mean, maybe I'm biased because that's how we work backwards from customer needs, but that is my main worry whenever we design something or architect something that we are doing great stuff, but we are conceptually so far ahead of where most of our customers and users are that we might design a Boeing 747 where people really need or are looking at, a nice little car or whatever. So just making sure that we really do something that people, I have no doubt that people want something like that. Just, what exactly look at your use cases there and so on, right? As long as they are really grounded in and derived from real world use cases that people actually said, yes, that's the pain point I'm having, etc. And at this point in time, I can, there can't be enough feedback from
Fair enough.
users.
Yeah. Fair enough. So maybe these are the kind of collaborations we can get in the document from all of you as well, right? In terms of use cases, or even prioritization of, which of the use cases that we have or additional ones that you may add are more interesting for customers, right? This is maybe, where everybody here can add a ton of value to the document without too much effort, right?
Cool. So thank you so much. And we still have, luckily, some 10 minutes left for Mike's topic there. If you're ready to go, then please.
Sure. So this kind of dovetails into the one point on use cases in the document that Dalian and Sergio shared around, like, it looks like the current focus of the multi-cluster SMI stuff is around a single administrative domain. So like having sameness in terms of namespaces in multiple clusters are logically the same, services with the same name and the same namespace are logically the same. And it was kind of an open question. I joined the SIG multi-cluster meeting last week, and there was some discussion about sameness, and it seems like a lot of their focus on the cluster set proposal is around this assumption of sameness, but there was some interest in potentially reusing some of those primitives for the federation work that's kind of alluded to in this document. And yeah, just wanted to kind of start a conversation there of if that's something that people have thought about at all yet, or how we might want to engage with SIG multi-cluster around some of this work.
You are, from what I am understanding, and I may be totally wrong, is where is the multi-infrastructure piece that we were discussing in the working group a few weeks ago? Mike?
Maybe? Not quite sure. So I guess
it's not super clear to me what the question is. Maybe that's my problem.
Basically how some of the work in the document that Dalian just shared potentially relates or does not relate to some of the federation work.
Okay.
Where
okay.
there's where there is not sameness in namespaces or service identity between two queue clusters.
Got it. Yeah, and Del, feel free to correct me. Yes, we are taking it into consideration in the document. We're not yet at that point in the document, but yes. So the document started as a multi-cluster proposal because we have to start somewhere. And but the idea is to have something. I mean, we need to consider if the API is on the design is going to be the same for a multi-cluster single administrative domain scenario, this homogeneous infra. Compared to the heterogeneous infra multiple administrative domains, right? If it is the same API, it is a different API, and we use the same designs or not, right? This is where we are right now in this document. All started with a Kubernetes homogeneous infra, one single administrative domain, as you have pointed out. But the idea is to take into consideration all in terms of use cases, right? So one of the things that we had to figure out is which are the use cases for these two scenarios, right? If the use cases we want to accomplish in the one single administrative domains are the same use cases we want to accomplish in a multi-administrative domain use, right? If, for example, if we are doing migration, right, that Michael said, in the context of workloads in this case, is the migration use case interesting for single administrative domain use cases or also for multi-administrative domain? right? And so on. That's for all of the use cases.
Right.
So maybe there are use cases which apply to one of these two things, and there are use cases which apply to all of them. Or maybe we end up saying that all of the use cases apply to, should be done regardless of if they are in a single or multiple administrative domain. But this is one of the things we need to figure out.
Yeah,
Right.
like off the top of my head, I'm guessing that like scalability of a logically identical service and like resiliency and failover of something that is logically the same thing are cases which are very specific to the single administrative domain. I would expect that like east-west traffic management, where you may have lower trust environments between potentially like different administrators, may fall into the other category potentially, but also could be a single administrative domain, kind of depending on the size and scale and topology of an organization.
Yeah, and I think this is where we need customer input as well, right? So I think that Michael has been spot on this, because this conversation can be endless, right? We can over-engineer things to the point that we are building things for our future customers in 5 years' time, right? But not for the customer of the next 6 months.
And there's one thing, Mike, that I'm trying to understand, and that is maybe an implicit assumption. That is, what you brought up is essentially assuming a pure Kubernetes setup, whereas the work that we're looking at, you might have, a VM running on premises, you might have some function somewhere, you might have, a Nomad or ECS cluster, you might have a Kubernetes cluster, etc. So the ways how to identify a specific workload or what is sameness or whatever is not necessarily as straightforward as if you have, I'm not saying that it's easy, but if you have a homogeneous environment, then you can make certain assumptions, which in a different case you cannot. Right?
Exactly. And that's the reason why we did this split, right? Because depending on the use cases, we don't want to over-engineer and over-complicate things, assuming that all of the use cases are going to be in any kind of administrative domain permutation. Right? We can end up with very complicated implementations and APIs that we don't really need.
Just to enlighten me, when you say administrative domain, you mean resources under the same CA, under the same namespace? Is that right?
When we are, traditionally, and there's no agreed definition on this, right? But traditionally, single administrative domain means that the platform or the platforms are owned by the same team, and they can reach agreement in terms of identity, policy, naming, and so on, right? And where there are different administrative domains, you cannot make those assumptions. And because you cannot make those assumptions, that also opens the door to have multi-infrastructure, right? You are not making assumptions about an identity model or about naming and so on. And because of that, you have more freedom deciding which kind of platform do you use, right? So you have to agree on a common interface between these platforms, because you are not making any assumptions between them.
Got it. So yeah, that narrows down or widens our use cases on whether whether multi-cluster is for multi-org, multi-teams infrastructure, which potentially could have different infrastructure.
And maybe that's a separate doc. like maybe that's a separate doc, separate proposal, and that makes most sense to focus on. Yeah.
That's where I would start. I think that's what we need to do now, right? Defining what is a single and a multiple administrative domain scenario. We need to decide which can be the use cases for those, and then from there we need to build the APIs, right? That's the flow. I think that it is more rational to follow, and getting a lot of feedback in those. From the API perspective, maybe it is more internal feedback. It is the SMI community. Maybe we don't need that much customer feedback, but from the single versus multiple administrative domains and use cases is going to be, I think, more outbound.
Yep. I can definitely follow up and see what we might be able to share as far as customer stories for that use case, even though it may be carved off into a separate chunk. But thanks, Bridget, for time check too.
That's incredible. I just need to say how much I love this conversation, and kind of Mike proposing looking at the multi-cluster sameness, and then Michael saying, hey, what about other payloads? I think just it's great. I love it.
Cool. All right, that is already it. We have 1 minute remaining, so I guess we can totally start a new topic. No, just kidding. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you next week again for the normal, normal meeting. And that doesn't mean we should stop working on that. Just next time we focus on something else. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.